All right, so we are now going to try to show you how you could draw a hallway. We're going to be using this photocopy sheet to kind of help us get started. If for some reason you can't put your hands on this right now, you can create your own. All you need to do is take a piece of paper and create a 4-centimeter square in the center, and you just take your ruler and just make sure you butt it up with the top of the page. That way the line is perfectly vertical, a lot like what we did with the linear perspective boxes. But put it in about the center of your page if you can, about like so, and just 4 centimeters. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, butt your ruler up on the left hand side of your page. And you might want to use the centimeter side, so that way you can make sure you measure it correctly. And here we're at the half centimeter point, so that's 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters. Okay, and then you just keep on going like so. And then once you've gotten that square made, you're going to connect all 4 corners to each corner, not the vanishing point, but each corner of your paper. We're going to do it kind of easy on here. So just make sure, you might want to go back and make sure they're all 4 centimeters long, and you're just going to take your ruler and you're going to draw a line from the corner to the corner of the paper, because we're going kind of easy again with this worksheet. So I'm not going to finish this process up. This is just for people who may have misplaced or lost their hallway worksheet, if you need to do that. And it's okay if you take it all the way there. I know this has a little bit of a gap, but don't worry, we can figure that out later. So for those of you who have the handout sheet, make sure this is on the right hand side. Okay, make sure that's on the right hand side of what you're doing. And what I want to have you do is, the photocopy machine, it cut off the line. So let's take our ruler and let's go ahead and take these lines on off the page real quick. That'll help us for later. Make sure they line up with the lines on here already. And they're not going to hit the corner perfectly, because again, we used a photocopy machine, and it kind of like it doesn't keep everything perfectly still when it makes copies. Sometimes it cuts off sections, but we're just going to take that on off the page like so. Okay, and then we're going to get to it. Now, if you were in a real hallway drawing, what would happen is the first thing you would draw would be your back wall. Your back wall, in real life, your back wall is not going to be a square. This is a square. In real life, your back wall would be a rectangle, and that's what shape you will use for your project, but we just did this to kind of make it easy. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start off with the ceiling tiles that are in our hallway. Now, one thing that will help us, let's go ahead and connect this line to this line with our ruler. We're not going to do the bottom, but we are going to do the top, and I'll explain why we're not doing the bottom later when we get to it. But let's go ahead and take our ruler and get this lined up here. And on this worksheet, we're going to use simpler numbers. We're not going to use the numbers like we would use in an actual hallway, which we'll do later. But we're going to start with simple numbers, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend like there are 4 ceiling tiles across the ceiling here from left to right going down this hallway. This is the far end, and then we're closer to here. So there's 4 here. So how do we figure out how big each ceiling tile is going to be? Well, the easiest way to do it is to take this line and measure it and divide it by the number of tiles. Now, I told you we're going to use 4. So let's measure it and divide by 4. Now, don't use inches. Inches is great when it comes to thinking about how tall I am or how far away things are. I think in terms of inches and feet and yards and miles. But when we're doing math, centimeters is a lot easier because it's all divisible by 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure this top ceiling, and we're going to divide it by the number of tiles. Now, how long do you find it? Now, I'm going to go kind of quick, so if you need to pause the video, pause the video. How long is this line? Well, you can see it's 4 centimeters. How many tiles did I tell you we were going to have? We're going to have 4 ceiling tiles. So if we take 4 ceiling tiles and we divide it into the number, or how long this part of the ceiling is, 4 ceiling tiles divided into 4 centimeters, well, that's pretty easy. 4 into 4 is only going to go 1 time. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a mark at every centimeter, because 4 divided into 4 is 1. Now, if you have been doing this, okay, and I'm going to make these marks kind of dark so you can see them easier. on the camera. Okay, so I made a mark every centimeter. I only need to make 3 marks. I didn't need to make the 4th mark because it already ends right here. Now, if I had had some weird wacky number, like if this had been 8, and I had 4 ceiling tiles, then what I would have done is I would have taken the number of ceiling tiles and divided it into 8 centimeters. And I would have gotten an even 2. And boy, that would have been easy. Every ceiling tile would have been 2 centimeters. It would have been this long instead of this long. So however long this is, divided by the number of tiles. When you do the real hallway, you're probably going to have 5 or 6 tiles. You're probably not going to have 4. Okay? Now, if we have 4 tiles down at the way end of our hallway, how many tiles are we going to have here close to where we are, where everything looks bigger? Well, we're going to have the same number of tiles here that we had down here. So we took this number and we divided it by 4. Well, we're going to do the same thing here. We have to measure this and divide it by 4. Now, not everyone out there is probably going to get the exact same number, but let's try to be as exact as we can. Let's take the ruler, and remember our 0 mark is right here. Our 0 is not the end of the ruler. When you were measuring earlier, I hope you were using this for your 0 mark, the black line, not the end of the ruler. Now, sometimes there is a ruler that will have this black line literally at the end of the stick of the ruler. But most of the rulers that I give in my classroom are away from there. So we're going to put the 0 mark, this first black line, right here. And we're going to measure in millimeters and see how long it is. Now, on my paper, I've got 27.1234567 about 27.8. Okay, now when we do the real hallway, I would take that really specific number, that 27.8, and I would divide it by 4. For the sake of this worksheet, we're going to go easier. It's really close to 28. It's only 2 millimeters off from 28, and it's not going to make much of a difference since we only got 4 ceiling tiles. So let's go ahead and say it's 28, but when we do the real hallway, I want you to be as specific as you can. Okay, so let's pretend like it's 28. If we have 28 centimeters, okay, and how many ceiling tiles did we say we had? We had 4, right? So 4 into 28 is going to go 7 times. So every ceiling tile up here is going to be 7 centimeters. Okay? So I'm going to take my ruler, put my 0 at this mark right here, and I'm going to make a mark at the 7. Okay, so every 7 I'm going to make a mark. So 7 plus 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7's at the 14. Now, if you know the multiplication tables, you don't have to count like I just did. You can just go straight to 21. But if you don't know them, you can say, okay, I made my mark here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I don't need to make a 4th mark because it's already at the end of my paper. I don't need to do that. So I've got 3 marks here for 4 tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 3 marks here for 4 tiles. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So I've got the same number of marks. Now, what I'm going to do to make it easy, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to connect this dot to this dot. Now, when I do that, I'm going to put my pencil. If you made a mark that big, don't connect it to here. Connect it to the line. So take your ruler, put it on the pencil, take it to this dot up here, and just connect it. And then one more. And the reason why we used math to do this is that we wanted to make it exact. We wanted this to be the same space across, and this is the same space across. Now, I do want to tell you something. When you're doing a real hallway, sometimes it's just not this easy. Sometimes some weird things will happen. Like, for instance, you may be drawing your hallway, and remember, your back wall is really going to be a rectangle. And let's say that you've got an angle going this way, and this one goes a little higher. When you're doing a real hallway, let's say this is the edge of your paper, okay? When you're doing the end of your hallway, when you're doing these ceiling lines and floor lines, in a real hallway, if you were in a real hallway, you would take your pencil and you would literally sight the angle and try to figure out how much of an angle it is compared to a horizontal line, or if it's really close to a vertical, you would say how close to a vertical line is that. You would actually sight it, use your pencil and kind of create the angle. We made it really easy for you. We just took all the lines to the vanishing points, okay? But not so here. if you were doing the math here, if you measured this and divided by 4, you would do the same thing as you did here. But over here, we can't measure from here to here. We can't do that. Why? Because technically, your ceiling ends here. And because that's the case, you would have to draw a straight line from here over to here. You'd butt up your ruler, and you would measure this line and divide it by 4. And then when you connect your lines, you could just go right off the page, and it would record it and make it look accurate, make it look correct. But for the worksheet we're doing today, it's a lot easier. All right, so let's do a couple more things. What we're going to do now is we're going to create the tiles that go back. We know that the further away things look smaller, and the closer they are to us, the bigger they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and we're going to butt it up either with the left side of the page or the right side of the page, and we're going to draw straight horizontal lines. It's really important that you butt up the ruler. If you don't, your ceiling tiles are going to look really weird. They're going to be small at first, and then it's okay to have maybe 2 in a row the same size. But as you keep going along, you're going to want to get a little bigger and a little bigger as you go on, okay? Now, if you want to look like a really deep hallway, you would just use a bunch of horizontal lines, like a lot of them. For this worksheet, it doesn't have to be a super, super deep hallway, but I do want you to have, a decent number of lines. But it's going to be very important that you butt that ruler up every time. If you don't butt that ruler up with one end of your page, your lines are going to look crooked, and you're going to need to go back and fix that, so that way it looks like a convincing architectural space. Okay, I'm going to get a little bigger. If you find that you went the same size too often, you can usually do 2 in a row the same size, but the third one needs to go a little bigger or it's just not going to look right. Okay, let's go up here. And then I'm going to try one more. Butt up my ruler here. And sometimes you can take your ruler and just kind of compare the space here to here and see if that's right. Sometimes you can eyeball it. That's good. Okay, so we've got a ceiling. We've got ceiling tiles. Now we know that ceiling tiles are really rectangular. They're usually this shape. But when you're looking at them going off into space, they angle a bit. And so by using the math, we broke up the space. We were able to create the angles, which we could have also sighted. We could have taken a pencil and kind of sighted them. But doing the math, it kind of saves us a few steps. All right, a couple more things, and then we will conclude this video before we move on to our next step. We're going to show you how to do ceiling tile lights. The lights in the hallway are usually going to be 2 ceiling tiles. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of one line. We're going to erase this line right here, and we're going to just darken the line up a little bit around it so that light pops out. I'd use your ruler so that way it looks darker. And the thing is, the ceiling tiles, they're rectangles too, and people want to draw rectangles. But if you draw a rectangle on the ceiling, it's going to look kind of funny. So how many lights do we need? Well, let's go 1, 2, 3. Let's do this one. What we're going to do is, the most important thing is that you be consistent. You're probably not going to be able to draw as many lights as are really in the real hallway, because the real hallway is really, really deep. You're only going to probably be able to draw like a portion of the real hallway, probably. You want it to be a significant portion, but you're probably not going to be able to draw the entire thing. If you drew the entire thing, yeah, don't freehand it like that. Use a ruler. It'd be more convincing. So see, we have a tile, 1, 2, 3. Here's tile, 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and make one more tile here. We're going to darken this line, darken this line, darken this one. And if you want to, just to make these lights pop out a little bit more, I haven't really taught to you guys how to shade yet, but if you want to add just a mild amount of shading, just a little bit to the ceiling tiles, just so that way they look a little darker than the lights. The lights obviously would be lighter because the lights are on. You can do that. Just do it really lightly. And we'll show you some shading techniques in the coming days where you can be a little more confident about it, but it's just a nice way to kind of help the lights pop out, create that contrast between the dark or the light, the medium light dark of the ceiling tiles versus the really light white of the ceiling lights. And I usually would take my time and do a better job than this, but this is just to kind of help you get an idea. Okay? All right. Well, that concludes this portion of the video. When we come back, we will start working on the left wall.